all set?
Yeah, let's give it a shot.
Let's give it a whirl. Welcome to the Sports Wrap. Happy end of May 31st today. June tomorrow. School's over.
School's over.
School's out. Full. So, anyway. Well, let's get the Wolves out of the way so we can end this on a positive note, because that was, after what we talked about here last week, and to have that happen, that's a big disappointment, George.
Well, I'll tell you what I was watching there was potentially Naz Reid's last game, Julius Randle's last game, and Alexander Walker's last game, and those three guys, they really kind of came off the bench. But you know, one of the things that I really appreciated was Terry Shannon. I remember Shannon when he was a guard at Illinois and ripped up the Gophers a couple of times, and I just thought, he's got good speed, he shoots well, he seems to have control, and so he comes on, and this is his rookie year, I believe, and you know, so there's some kids in there that spark. In order for them to be the team that they want to be, because I'm telling you right now, is Edwards can't carry the whole deal alone. We know that. We knew that from the time Michael Jordan looked for Scottie Pippen. You know, it just you can't do it by yourself, and so I think it's those kids that they're going to have to count on, because these other three guys, they're gone.
Yeah, and they made mention about the fact that Mike Conley was kind of, you know, wasn't a big factor in the series. Julius Randle kind of went back to the way he was in January and December, where all of a sudden he was a non-factor. And I mean, OKC won 68 games this year. Let's be honest. I mean, they're a good team, but the Wolves are right there. But you mentioned that there's going to be some pieces that are going to be gone. There'll be new pieces brought in. It'll be interesting, and I say this with all seriousness, it'll be interesting to see who will want to come in and possibly sign as a free agent with and play with Anthony Edwards.
When they came in and played the third game, that might have been the finest Timberwolf game I've ever seen ever. You know, and they were just hitting the baskets. They were driving to the buckets, and that brings up another thing. You know, the old circumstance is you live by the three, you die by the three. And right now I see offenses. There's two cornermen. Well, they ain't cornering the paint; they're cornering the corners, and they're going to have to do a little something with this three-point game. Otherwise, it's going to start getting a little bit dull. And it's they're running down. First thing they do is they see an open 30-footer and they let fly. And it's
that's not the way to win.
Well, I'm telling you, Anthony Edwards, he went to the bucket. When he goes to the bucket, he's as good as anybody that drives. And I said this before, he's almost as good as Elgin Baylor. You know,
somebody made this comment either on X or Facebook or wherever. He's 23 years old.
Yeah.
Jordan, who came out after playing 3 years in college versus 1, so a little different. He's 23. Mike didn't make the Eastern Conference, didn't make the NBA Finals until he was 27, after losing to Detroit twice.
Yeah.
So these things, the message was, these things take time, and I hope that we're not ready to give up completely.
And Naz Reid's 24. You know, I mean, these are young men, and they haven't reached the peak of their game. You know, it's amazing to see what they're going to do career-wise, because it is going to be substantial. On the other hand, when the 3 or 4 of those guys with Ruby were clicking, there were very few teams in the NBA. Oklahoma are not. And right now, I have to admit, Oklahoma, I think, is the best team, and I think they've been that way all year long. But they played so well and played so hard, and Julius Randle is playing old-time football basketball, where a good shoulder block will get you a lot of things, and then all of a sudden he quit that. They quit shooting. Naz Reid, if he can't go to the paint, then he's got to have his three, and if he ain't hitting his three, he gets to go sit down too. And it's but I was deeply disappointed in the last 2 games. The last game, we went and watched Spelling Bee. it was more exciting. Those kids were great. And so, you know, but Sue and I were laughing. I says, no. She says, do you want to turn on the game? I says, no. It was too brutal to watch.
It was. I agree.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the other series. Knicks win last night. Get it to within 3-2. Can they come back and win it?
I think they can. Right now, the Knicks are playing really, really well. Towns is playing exceptionally well. I noticed in the fourth quarter last night, though, he's starting to drag a little bit.
They said he had a bad knee that he was questionable last night.
Okay, well maybe that was it.
So
he was having a hard time, but he's been rebounding and playing underneath the basket like we always wanted him to do, and. So I'm kind of pulling for the Knicks. It's been a while. This is a Wes Unseld moment.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think the Knicks can pull it out. I think Indiana, well, I think either one of the two teams from the East really probably can't compete with OKC. But that's why they play the game.
Indiana have this Halliburton guy, and I'll tell you what. As a Merchant Seaman, the Halliburton name was all over the place. This kid can out play basketball, and you know he gets one of those 40-45 point games, and he is capable of breaking loose for that. But I really, maybe you disagree, but I think the New York Knicks will give a better series to Oklahoma.
That's very possible.
Yeah,
very possible. Let's move on to a little bit of hockey.
Let's do some hockey.
We got a repeat in the Stanley Cup Finals, only for the 12th time ever.
It just doesn't happen that often, you know. And it's I feel kind of bad about
Dallas losing? No, we don't.
Well, no. I was thinking.
I had to throw that
I was thinking more about our home man. Kid Ottinger, he was taking a lot of grief. I said last time we were here, I saw him do just incredibly magical things, and it kind of fell apart after that. They pulled him.
At the start of the third period, they had the reporter on there in between the benches, and she had talked with the assistant coach, and she asked him why they had pulled Ottinger, and he said that's a Peter DeBoer decision. Which, in my mind, meant he didn't agree with it, right?
Yeah, maybe.
DeBoer made a decision. It was a tough decision, I'm sure. You're pulling out your franchise goaltender, but maybe he thought that was going to give him a little spark. Edmonton was just too good. Edmonton, well, I hate to say this. I'm going to say Edmonton wins it in 6. That's what I believe. Florida, wow, I'm just...
I did not think Florida was going to be able to repeat as a finalist. They didn't have that good an early season, but boy, they are playing hockey right now, and they are zip-zipping.
Well, your good friend Mike Bolstead would say there are teams that are built for the regular season, and there are teams that are built for the playoffs, and obviously Florida has been built for the playoffs. They made an interesting point during last night's game, I thought, and after they said it, I thought about it, and I think it's very true. In the old days, Edmonton would have gotten up 5-3 like they did last night, and they would have wanted to step on your freaking throat and make it 6-3 or 7-3, and they'd end up losing 6-5 because they were playing willy-nilly. They went into lockdown mode. They got to 5-3, and they went into lockdown mode, and that's the difference right now with this Edmonton team. It's different than a few years ago, and that's why I think Edmonton pulls this off and wins it. First Cup for Canada since 1993.
So they're going to win the whole deal.
They'll win the whole deal in 6 games. That's my prediction.
What can I say? There'll be people watching for that one. It's been a while since the Oilers have done that.
Well, like I said, right now they're playing really good hockey.
The Great Wayne will go nuts over that.
Dallas lost for the 3rd consecutive year in the conference finals, semifinals, and not many teams have done that. Dallas is on the verge, but they just are struggling to get over, and that's fine by me, by the way. Just in case you didn't know how I feel about the Dallas Stars.
I thought it was the uniforms. Hey, they dropped the word North.
At least they did that for us.
Yeah.
How about your Minnesota Flash?
There they go, and I've been analyzing this for a couple of days now, and it's just like, and they've got a league of 6 teams.
Oh my God.
And I thought, There was a time in the NHL, there was New York, Boston, Detroit, Chicago, Toronto, and Montreal, and those were the 6 teams. And I mean, and at that point in time, they probably had by far the best hockey players in the world. There was not a whole lot of teams for them to play for. There were a lot of guys that played in the American Hockey League that were fantastic hockey players, but like I say, 6 teams. So these girls, I should say girls, these women, they're starting off with 6 teams. They have to expand that.
They are.
And so,
Vancouver and Seattle start next year.
And so if they do that, then see, you never know what walks in on a Friday.
On a Friday
It is a
afternoon.
Friday, right?
In Rainier. Can get scary.
I'm scared.
So, yeah, they're expanding to 8 teams next year, so the Frost are going to lose some players that they don't want to lose, but everybody's going to.
Yeah, no, they get a couple more, and how many teams in the NHL now?
30. 32.
Yeah, they're just that's because all the Canadians moved to Florida and they couldn't live down there all winter without hockey, so they had to shoot them down. So
what's the? I know this is a math question. What's the math? What's the possibility that all 4 games would end up 2-1, and all of them in overtime?
No,
right?
And that happened last year too. They won 2-1 in overtime, and it's like this is the deja vu series. What do we do? Well, we'll just put down the score, and then we'll pick a winner a little later. But all in overtime. That's
yeah, good. And like I said, I talked about Edmonton going into lockdown mode. I think that's the way Minnesota plays. A team that's built for the playoffs. And remember, had to win on the final day on the road in Boston just to make the playoffs. And get in there and then win both series in 4 games. Basically with outstanding defense.
Well, they call it the frozen roses. So they got their roses, and I saw a picture in the paper. They all look pretty happy to me. So congratulations to the Frost.
Absolutely, good to see. Let's stay with the Minnesota women. The Lynx are 5-0.
Oh, they have not lost. And there's another team down there in that Eastern Division. They're 5-0 too. That's that New York.
The Liberty.
The Liberty. And so they are
pot-licking, ref-loving mother beeps.
Okay. Sportsmanship is what it's all about, right there. This we know.
The Lynx play at Phoenix tonight, who's 4-1. Yep. And then they go to Golden State, the expansion team, the Valkyries, right?
Yeah.
They're 2-3, and then they get Phoenix again on Tuesday at home. So a couple of big games coming up. We'll see. They've expanded the season, I think, up to 40 games this year. So that also opens up a longer season, more chances to get bumps and bruises. So, anyway, like I said, Lynx looking good.
They are. And the Loons. Never should anybody really be happy with a 0-0 tie, but it was against Toronto.
I think against Vancouver, they'll take that. The team in first place in the West. Matter of fact, they got 2 ties this week. 1-1 at Austin and 0-0 at Vancouver. They get to play at Seattle on Sunday, and then they get 2 weeks off. They need that. They've been playing lots of soccer recently, so
they have.
Playing in Seattle is not against the Sounders is not an easy goal.
Well, I know there's going to be hungry Loons fans when they come home. So those soccer people, they're as strange as wrestlers.
I can't argue with you on that. So. Yeah. How about your Minnesota Twins?
Here we go. Before I talk about the Twins, rumor has it groups have been going around and looking for to buy the Twins.
Okay.
The going asking price, because just in case you wanted to get all your nickels together, is $1.7 billion with a B.
That's too shabby.
No, that's not too shabby. And so people, if they want to come up with some spare change, they're going to that will kind of be the asking price. Now, there's some problems with that, like the Twins owe $400 million that they're in debt to. So does that get added on? Because 100 million here, 100 million there, pretty soon it's real money. And so we'll see what happens there. And then another thing that was brought up is there's a strong possibility that next year there's going to be a Twins, or there'll be a major league lockout. And part of this is because the fat markets don't want to give the skinny markets any more than they're getting, and they have to figure out a way to how to divvy this up a little bit.
They got to do the NFL.
Yeah, something like that. And so they're going to have to come out with how are we going to divvy this up a little bit more equitably, and they haven't even talked about the players yet. So there's a situation that they're going to have to. So to buy a baseball team right now, I'm telling you, you better want a baseball team, because it's not only going to cost you a lot of money, but the future is questionable. That being said, baseball is it's still a great American sport, and it'll all iron out, I think.
All baseball, has gone through this a couple of times.
They have, indeed.
And it has taken, I'll say it this way, it's taken years for people to get their butts back in the seats. This would not be, I don't think this would be a good move, but at the same time, there needs to be, yes, they need to find a way. When the LA Dodgers are spending $450 million, how do you compete?
Well, and keep in mind, this doesn't happen too often. There have been 3 Major League Baseball teams sold in the last 10 years. So it doesn't happen but in 3 or 4 years, and they go through an awful lot of vetting in order to even qualify to belong to their little club. And so, it's a strange situation. Now, the Twins, oh boy, where to start? All of a sudden we have a guy named Cody Clemens, another guy named Baden, you got another guy named French, you got these guys going over because Royce Lewis hasn't been able to hit a thing. In fact, they interviewed him the other day. He says my hitting worries has gone beyond depression. He says I'm desperate, and he's hitting like a 125 or 130. He's not doing well. He hasn't been able to break out. And you've seen this happen before. And Byron Buxton, I think he's going to be coming back pretty quick.
They took him off the concussion list today.
Well, I tell you, that won't hurt. But right now the starting pitchers are carrying them, and these guys are all coming off there with pitched 5 or 6 innings, and they might have allowed 1 or 2 runs. They struck out 6 and walked 2, and it's just these really great half-game statistics. So they're carrying it, and it's when you see this, you think that can continue forever.
No,
we've got to get those bats swinging and the bats singing, and if you can do that, then you're going to be in better shape. But that being said, what did I say? They were.
They're 30 and 25.
And
They're tied for second place.
You know what they were last year at this time?
30 and 25.
30 and 25. and this year they're 6 games out. Last year there were 6.5 games out. So they're half game better than where they were.
Well, hallelujah.
Just looking on the positive side. But as long as we're there, we got to talk about Detroit's 37 and 21. Their division leader. New York is 35 and 20, and they're the East Division leader. They are really swatting the heck out of the baseball. And Seattle's out there in the East, out in the West. They're the reasons you don't sleep at night in Seattle. Sleepless in Seattle, that's because the game doesn't start till 9:30. And they're 30 and 24. In the National League, Chicago's setting the pace. In the Central Division, 35 and 21. Philadelphia, 36 and 20. Let's just remember that. That's outside of Detroit, the best record in baseball. So, and the Dodgers, the surly old Dodgers, 34 and 22. Now, if you take a look at this, LA, Philadelphia, Chicago, Seattle, Detroit, New York, all major markets. Every one major markets. which means more mun, which means more fun. And it's but you kind of have to take a look at that major market thing.
So what happens when the A's, the Oakland A's or whatever we're calling them this year, what happens when they get to Vegas?
Yeah, see, that's the whole deal. You really don't know, but you know, we're in the heart. We're starting to get in the middle of the baseball season here. It's looking really good. I think this is going to be a great season.
It's going to be an exciting race.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it is.
I don't know how many games the Twins are going to win, 85, 88, somewhere in that vicinity. They probably got to get to 90 to guarantee.
Even at that, there were people that were predicting they wouldn't hit 77 games, and I thought, you know, maybe they're right in the way they started off. It kind of looked like that, but they're exciting to watch. What can I say? This young Cody and Baden and Ty French, boy, he looks pretty mean when he's up there swinging that stick. So
he's doing okay.
He's doing okay.
Doing
Yeah,
okay.
We'll take him.
You been up in the morning watching the French Open at all?
Well, I tell you, I know that it's going on, but it's way too early for me. And
I always promise myself, because I like to watch tennis, especially Wimbledon.
yeah,
And Wimbledon usually starts pretty early in the morning too. But while school's going on, I have a tough time getting up at 5:30 to watch tennis. Especially sometimes on the clay when it's the rallies are like 27, 30. It's like, anyway, having said that, I hope this weekend and this coming week I get to watch a little early morning tennis.
Well, how about the College World Series? That's got to be setting up here pretty quick, isn't it?
Well, I got started yesterday.
Okay.
And I will say that I was home in time to watch Oklahoma hit a walk-off 3-run home run against Tennessee to win 4-2. And then last night they had a little rain delay, and then they played a game, and then Oregon and UCLA, the new Big Ten teams, played in the final game of the day. And I'm like, I can't stay up this late. I can't stay up this late. However, when I crawled into bed, I put it on my phone.
So you could
just keep an eye on it, just in case.
When I woke up, catch the score. Yeah, that's pretty funny.
So I fell asleep, and I got up for the 7th inning, and UCLA hits a walk-off home run to win it 4-2 to beat Oregon. So the College World Series, Women's College World Series got started. It was some excitement, good games across the boards. You remember this lady from Stanford a couple years ago, pitcher?
Yeah.
Najari Kennedy or Kennedy?
Big tall glass of water that could really shoot.
But she now pitches for Texas Tech. Did you hear how much they spent to get her?
No, but I'm not going to be surprised.
Just take a guess.
$500,000. $1 million. $1 million.
They paid her $1 million to get her out of Stanford to come. And guess who made a phone call to her to have her make sure she felt welcome? Patrick Mahomes.
Patrick, give her a call.
Patrick made a call before she signed the deal.
And Mahomes, he was 3/4 baseball player at once.
He was.
One time.
So $1 million, and she wins they win 1-0 yesterday. So the College World Series, that's one of those things I got to get down to watch.
Yeah.
You got to put it on your bucket list to go down there and watch. The college baseball tournament starts. By the way, the losers play tonight. 2 teams will be gone. The winners play tomorrow. It's good stuff. The college baseball. Now, here's the top 6 seeds. Are you ready?
Yeah, I'm ready.
Vandy, Texas, Arkansas, Auburn, North Carolina, LSU. What do 5 out of those 6 teams have in common?
They're all in the same conference.
They're all in the SEC.
Yeah.
8 of the top 16 seeds are from the SEC.
Well, and the SEC, they're bragging up football and basketball as well. I don't know what's going on, but
that nice weather doesn't hurt.
No, it doesn't.
What?
It doesn't.
All I'm going to say is this. I hope about half of those teams don't make it to next week or the week after, because I'm sick and tired of hearing how good the SEC is.
I one time had a guy say to me, "You're a good coach. The only problem you don't have is you don't have a Southern drawl. You get a Southern drawl, you're a lot more effective coach. And you listen to these guys in the sidelines, you know, they're all south of the Mason-Dixon line, and no matter what we do, I'm going to get a Canadian drawl before I get an Alabama drawl. But yeah, you got to get the drawl. So why? Well, he says, then you go over and ask him, what did you say? What did you say?
So the baseball tournament gets started today.
Yeah.
It'll end up in Omaha on June 23rd, possibly. Could be the last day, June 22nd or June 23rd, which is a long ways away.
That lasts 3 weeks.
A good 3 weeks. It's fun to watch some baseball, watch the kids play.
Well, you know, next year you're going to see some of those kids in the major league. So, you know, or at least AAA somewhere. Most of their careers are just starting.
What else you got in your paperwork? Because that's all I got.
That's all you got? Let's talk about we got some local things to talk about. How'd your golfers do?
Golfers, we had one make it to the second day. That was Zach Yuso.
Zach, I sure he's
ended up, I think, taking 35th or 6th. I think was the place. So a good finish for him. He'll improve for next year and do things. Baseball season came to an end, 11-1 at the hands of Proctor Rails on Tuesday. Track and field teams had their seasons come to an end, -1 relay. The 4x200 came in seated 5th and took 2nd place to get it on a good lean, beat Esco. Don't get to say that very often.
No, and you beat them on the lead.
That you edge out Esco, but we did. Congratulations to those ladies. I'm probably going to screw it up if I give the names. So I'm not gonna try to give all 4 of them because I'm gonna screw it up. But they go to the state track meet on Tuesday, June 10th. So they got about 10-12 days to get themselves ready to improve. Yeah, got a chance to go down and watch the section track meet, which is always an enjoyable day. A little cooler than normal.
Where was that at?
At UMD.
UMD. Yeah.
And we found our section champions in softball. So Esco, speaking of not wanting to see, but Esco came back and beat Rush City twice. Moose Lake Willow River won Class A. Things are coming to an end. The baseball playoffs we're already halfway through. There's 6 teams left in A and AA. Those games will go off next week. And, by this time next week, we'll know who's going to the state baseball tournament.
Well, that's all you got to do is go a few more weeks. Then you start considering football and fall sports. That's when your world becomes a bit more hectic.
Start all over again.
So as I was scrounging the Minneapolis paper today, they were looking at the top high school prospects for 26,
I printed those off.
Did you?
So that I had them, so I put them someplace where I can see how these kids do in the future.
So can we see 2 Azimas in the starting lineup for the Gophers?
He'll play baseball. He won't be a basketball.
He
will not be a basketball player for the Gophers. He will be a baseball player. That is his sport. He's a good basketball player, but they say he's a great baseball player.
Well, he's 6'3", he's 200 pounds, he's a good size, and I suppose he moves well.
And he can hit a baseball.
And he can hit it, but that's the key in that sport, isn't it?
So, that's why he'll be a baseball player. I believe that's what I'm being told.
Well, he says he's going to Minnesota.
Going to Minnesota. That I think is a done deal.
Yeah.
I don't think he's going anyplace else. So unless the NL, and I'm not saying that they're after money, but sometimes it's hard to. That's Coy Parrish. How much money do you gotta have to sweeten the pot? Not to go to Ohio State or someplace else. Michigan.
I don't want to. My informants down in Minneapolis said he got $500,000 this year, and he's going to get a full $1 million next. But a full $1 million is quite commonplace now. When you talk about a softball pitcher getting $1 million, when you're talking about a heavyweight wrestler getting $500,000 for a season, now the sport thing's starting to pay off a little bit. I asked
sooner rather than later.
I asked a friend of mine, you were all state, well, what were you going to get for your NIL? And he laughed and he says, I got $100 extra every month. I shouldn't be saying until I was a senior, and then he didn't give me any more. And he says, I asked him one time, hey coach, you owe me money? And he says, and he started laughing and walked away. that's over $100. So you know, who's to say not that there was anything corrupt where I played?
Right.
No.
What else you got? Anything?
You see, I don't think so. I think those are the notes that I put down for 2 hours.
Well, I gotta say congratulations to Will Lave and Lori Yuso on their retirements from ISD 361. Best of luck going forward. I told them they both got to find jobs. You got to stay busy. Otherwise, bad things happen. You got to stay busy.
You got to stay busy. Whether you got to get a job, you know, I don't know. I had a job. I was a DJ for a blues show one time, but that was a long time ago.
That's a long time.
That was a long time ago.
All right.
And that's all I had. Was just at the crossroads of sports here, and all that other stuff disappeared. And here we are, holding the bag now. If the Wolves had won, we'd be gabbing to beat up, you know, and you know.
We have a lot more to discuss.
So anyway, but just to bring up one more thing about the Vikings, I said they're starting to say, how does JJ look throwing the pass? And he says, he looks great, but there's nobody coming at him. and they're not allowed to hit him when they do. So he says, yeah, he's got a great arm. Oh, but he's got so far to go, and you know, they're all concerned.
They got offensive linemen to protect them.
They do have offensive linemen.
Much better.
Oh yeah, no, I agree. So, but they're talking already. Football is like it's 6 weeks away.
6 weeks away.
6 weeks away.
Blue Bombers are only 10 days away, 11 days away. So they won their first preseason game, by the way.
And
if anybody cares.
I got my St. Croix.
There's Sioux Falls.
Canaries, Sioux Falls Canaries. Cheap, cheap, cheap. That's their cheer. Cheap, 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 cheap. It's you know, that's what my wife says about me all the time.
Dad is disappointed. I talked with him the other day. I said, "How you doing?" He goes, well, "I'm a little down. I don't have anybody baseball to follow."
No.
I said, "How's your son feel about it?" I think he's better with it than I am. Who knows?
He played that game the way, as hard as anybody we've ever seen play, and he did it for a long time. You know, and it's just like somewhere along the line you have to hang up your spikes, and nobody likes doing it, and everybody has to.
Everybody's got to.
Everybody's got to. So anyway, yeah, he's great.
Happy June, everybody. We'll talk to you soon.